I think this is somebody has joined using Bose's link, and somebody who's driving. Hello?
My assistant must be, she's in Coimbatore.
Does she need to be on screen?
No.
So can you please remove the other two Bose Krishnamacharis? Only keep the one original.
I can't find it.
No, you don't have to. The host will do it.
Okay, all right.
There are 3 more Bose Krishnamacharis.
I don't know.
Apologies, it won't be possible to remove. If I remove one, all of them will get removed. So I think Bose will have to
ask them to.
I don't know who is, I'll check it.
Yeah, I think these are people who have used your panelist link to log in.
Oh, I see. Oh, that must be some, I don't know, by mistake I must have shared it with people.
Okay, it's 6:30. Please start the webinar. Good evening. Welcome to the Kochi edition of our World Heritage Debate Series. I am Bilay Menon, National Vice President of Institute of Urban Designers, India, and I shall be moderating this session. Our World Heritage is conducting a thematic debate series on many topics such as tourism, climate change, human rights, information technology, disasters and pandemics, and so on. To give a glimpse of the program, we shall play a video of 30 seconds. In this thematic debate, among many precincts across the world, 3 heritage precincts are featured from India. As part of the webinar debate series in the month of February, our World Heritage thematic debate is on tourism and its impact on conservation. Many World Heritage cities and precincts across the world are participating in this debate series. To give an overview of this thematic debate series on heritage and tourism, let me share another video of 3 minutes.
tourism for an UNESCO World Heritage Site is often considered predatory with destructive effects for the environment, and which destabilizes local communities whose profits are seized by companies based in other countries. Yet tourism is a powerful vehicle to present heritage to a wider audience, to support preservation while contributing to economic and social sustainability. It is a mechanism that allows preservation and protection of the heritage itself, but this requires awareness from all stakeholders and the involvement of local communities in the use of appropriate management tools, especially nowadays when tourism and heritage sites are exposed to critical changes for the public good and environment. Our World Heritage believes that defining the key principles of mutually beneficial interrelationship between heritage and tourism is crucial. These challenges include the ramifications of COVID-19 and the subsequent global economic and social crisis. We maintain that it is imperative to pave the way for a conceptual and practical vision of the interrelationship between heritage and tourism. Governments like us need to dismantle previous outdated concepts. We are an interdisciplinary team of universities and researchers, NGOs, businesses, and institutions. We strive to rebuild new cognitive paradigms between heritage and tourism. We wish to offer tools, methods, and approaches capable of responding to the challenges of our time in an effort to develop meaningful, mutually sensitive synergies which will ensure continuity, resilience, and sustainability between heritage and tourism alike. You are invited to take part in our exchanges and discussions in the course of 2021. Our World Heritage.
In this thematic debate among many heritage precincts across the world, 3 heritage precincts are featured from India under the theme Heritage, Tourism, and Locality. We have already covered Hampi in Karnataka and Nizamuddin in Delhi. Today, we are having the debate on third and the final precinct of this series on Kochi. Kochi is a unique city known for its vibrant cultural landscape. In 2020, Lonely Planet listed Kochi among the top 10 destinations of the world. National Geographic Traveler listed Kochi among the top 25 best destinations, and TripAdvisor ranked Kochi first among 25 trending destinations of the world. So what is so special about Kochi? We shall find that out in this webinar as we have with us eminent panelists, the global coordinator of our World Heritage Debate Series, Ms. Minja Yang, curator of the thematic webinars on Indian cities, Professor K.T. Ravindran, pioneer of responsible tourism in India, Mr. Jose Dominic, founding president of the Kochi Muziris Binale, Mr. Bruce Krishnamachari, director and curator of Kerala Museum, Ms. Aditi Nair, and Indian National Trust Art and Cultural Heritage State Convener and renowned heritage activist, Sri K.J. Sohan. Let us begin with the introduction of the first panelist. Participants are requested to post your question in the chat box. We shall try to pick appropriate questions during the panel discussion at the end of the speaker sessions. Our first panelist is the global coordinator of this webinar debate series, Professor Minja Yang. She is a renowned cultural heritage management consultant from Japan. She was formerly the director of UNESCO office in New Delhi and was responsible for special projects on urban heritage for development. She also had key responsibilities at the World Heritage Center and was coordinator for the World Heritage Cities. Currently, she is UNESCO consultant on culture and development, specialized in World Heritage sites and urban heritage management. Over to Minja Yang for introducing the our World Heritage thematic webinar series. Over to you, Minja.
Thank you, Billy. First of all, it's a great pleasure to see so many of my friends in India who I haven't seen for 11 years since I left the post as the UNESCO director. And as indicated by Billy, I've been dealing a lot with teaching at the university. So I had the view of what is in the thinking of the academic world, as well as based on my past experience of working with practitioners. So what I'd like to say is that this series of now 25 events, of which 3 are yours, aim to bring up the field reality of some 210 recommendations that we have, draft recommendations that we have collected on policy recommendations on creating better synergies between tourism, heritage conservation, and local development, with the view of the Sustainable Development Goals that you are all aware about. So we consider at our World Heritage that the SDGs is really the universal value that we should all be aiming for, citizens pressuring governments to attain these objectives. So as indicated in the short film, we have the transformational challenge of information technology, tourism this month. Next month, we'll be having diversity and gender and human rights, disaster and pandemics, new heritage approaches, issues of sustainability, climate change, and heritage and memory, heritage places and memory, and heritage and conflict, and beyond the list, because we feel that there's just too much emphasis on inscription of new sites on the World Heritage List, whereas the World Heritage Convention is really about improving the legal and management framework of heritage sites, whether it's World Heritage or whether it's of national importance or local importance. And the last bit is the last of the series of debates on opening up the civil society. So I hope that we will have an opportunity for debate after the interventions of our panelists. So with that, I'll leave it at that for the time being. Thank you, Billy, and thank you everybody for participating.
Thank you, Minja, for that crisp and concise introduction of our World Heritage webinar series and this thematic debate program that you've been conducting. Now, let me introduce Professor K.T. Ravindran, the curator of the 3-part series on Indian heritage precincts of Hampi, Nizamuddin, and Kochi, titled Heritage, Tourism, and Locality. K.T. Ravindran is an urban designer, chairman of the Architectural Heritage Advisory Committee of INTAC, trustee of the Indian Heritage Cities Network Foundation, and was member of the advisory board for the United Nations Capital Master Plan, New York. He was dean and senior academic advisor of RICS School of Built Environment, and was the former chairman of Delhi Urban Arts Commission. He was the founding president of the Institute of Urban Designers India and head of the Department of Urban Design, and also dean of School of Planning and Architecture in New Delhi. Over to K.T. Ravindran to introduce the thematic curation of this webinar series in India and selection of Kochi as the 3rd and final heritage precinct. K.T.
Thank you, Billy. You've made my task a little lighter by already stating that there were 3 webinars which were conceived together for India. Apart from what I am doing, there is also Shikha Jain, who is doing a webinar based in Rajasthan And that's going to take place, I think, on a later date within this month. The main thing that I'd like to say is that Kochi is a very, very special place. It's not, it's compared to the other two places we covered, like Hampi and Nizamuddin East. It has no World Heritage Monument around it. The city itself is not a World Heritage City as yet, but I hope it will become someday a World Heritage City, because it certainly deserves to be protected. That protection umbrella that comes with the World Heritage tag is very important for Kochi. And the speciality of Kochi is that it's a heritage town which is grown from within. It's not a heritage tag which is given to it from the outside, but it is a town which was grown in the last 30 years. The city has grown into a heritage precinct, and the population of the city have now begun to value the fact that heritage buildings are actually good for them, because it brings in a lot of tourism. It has a very unique culture, and it has a fabulous cross section of demographic profile, and the place is a kind of an example of how multiculturalism can thrive within a heritage precinct. So in the last 30 years, even though no one has come from the outside and said this is a precious place we should protect and so on, the people themselves have now realized the value of it, because it's now embedded in the psyche of every Cochin citizen that the place has an inherent heritage value of its own. This is what makes Kochi a very different place, because it's from the inner energy of the town that it has now found its final expression as one of the finest destinations, like Bilal just said, one of the 10 best destinations of the world. So I must thank all of you who have now assembled here, particularly the panelists, particularly, because the idea of choosing the panelists was to actually shift our gaze. I, being an architect, tend to always go back to the physical form. And the idea was to shift the gaze from the physical form to the social fabric and to the concept of locality. How does locality as a conceptual frame play itself out in a place like Kochi, is what we'll be hearing from the panelists, and how the fabulous traditional fabric that Kochi has will actually play a complementary role with that locality in the kind of vibrancy that you see today. So our panelists will be able to bring that out because it is an excellent cross-section of people that we have, people who have the lived experience of being in Kochi. And with that, I'll stop. Thank you all for being here, all the panelists, particularly for being with us. And I thank Minja before anyone else, because Minja is the one who actually prompted this whole series of discussions. And thank you, Minja, and I hope that something very useful will come out of this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie, for introducing why you have included Kochi in the thematic curation of this webinar series on tourism, heritage tourism and locality. Kochi holds a very special place in the tourism and heritage circles in India. And as you have rightly pointed out, it has its own special place, because of which it has become one of the special places in the world, one of the must-see destinations of the world. Thank you. So, Kochi is a city located in the southwestern coast of the Indian peninsula in the state of Kerala. Just to give you a geographic location of this place, Kerala is flanked by the Arabian Sea on the west coast and Western Ghats mountain ranges on its east. Western Ghats is one of the biodiversity hotspots of the world. Kochi is also a port city located at the coastal seamouth of the Vembanad Lake region. The map you see on the left-hand side is the geographic map which shows the Western Ghats and the Arabian Sea and the position of Kochi. Whereas the map on the right side, what you see is that of the Vembanad Lake system, a Ramsar wetland. This unique cultural landscape region, which is connected to the Spice Hill ranges through 7 major rivers, has witnessed international cultural exchange with Europe, Africa, Arabia, Southeast Asia, and China for over 2,500 years of spice trade. Popularly known as the Queen of the Arabian Sea, Cochin has been one of the hubs of international sea trade. A city known for its cultural pluralism, Kochi has been historically a favorite place among travelers and traders. What is the secret behind Kochi's unique model of heritage tourism? To throw light on this, let me bring in our next panelist, co-founder of CGH Earth India and tourism wizard, Mr. Jose Dominic. Jose Dominic has been a pioneer of responsible tourism in India. In recognition of his pioneering efforts in the field of tourism, he was awarded with a special commendation for Resort Development Award by the Ministry of Tourism, Government of India. He has been the recipient of several awards, including Lifetime Achievement Honor from the Times of India Group. He is the founder president of Kerala Travel Mart and founder member of the Ecotourism Society of India. He is presently a member of the World Travel Mart Responsible Tourism Advisory Panel, member of National Tourism Advisory Council, Government of India, and member of Kerala State Tourism Advisory Panel. To enlighten the audience about Kochi, a unique model of heritage tourism, let me invite Jose Dominic. Jose, over to you for the next 15 minutes.
Thank you, Billy. Let me again thank Minja Young and Katie for putting all this together. And I'm happy to be a participant in this seminar on Kochi. The best place in the world to live in. A great place to live in is a great place to visit. And a great place to visit is a great place to work in, invest in, and all of that. I've just put that as a definition of what makes tourism responsible. So before I go into Kochi itself, let me just talk about the context, Kochi and Kerala. Kerala's growth and story of tourism of Kerala. It's a remarkable story. I myself came into this story, say sometime in the mid-70s. My father, who's a hotelier, for that reason I joined him. He came in as way back as 1954. In 1978, around that time, Kochi on Kerala's, in the 80s, let us say, Kerala would have been considered to be, using the Hindi term, Bimaru, a Bimaru state as far as tourism is concerned. Our share in international arrivals to India at those times was about 1.3% of arrivals to India. From that, the next 30 years, it has grown to about 20%. From 25,000 in 1978, it's now well over 1 million international travelers. And of course, domestic travel, about 10 times that number. What did tourism do to Kerala, and why tourism in Kerala? Recently, just last week, there was a workshop by the Kerala Planning Board, in which one of the speakers was Nobel laureate Joseph Stiglitz, when he talks about Kerala's dependence on indirectly the fossil fuel economy, meaning remittance from the Gulf countries, and that it's time that Kerala move, and it is moving, to use its own productive capacity and its own creative capacities. And that movement is what we are witnessing. In a way, I think the Kerala, what has happened in Kerala is post-independence, that time of turbulent time, red was there everywhere. And I would say red kept Kerala green, kept the smokestacks out. But in short, it scared away investors to come to Kerala. So that, in fact, modeled or fashioned the way tourism developed in Kerala. And I'll come to Kochi. In the absence of big in capital coming from the outside, foreign know-how coming from the outside, what happened in Kerala was small independent, small local entrepreneurs did what they could, which was small, in a manner which they knew which is local. The story of tourism of Kerala is indigenous and small could become world class. And that created a model which is quite distinct and different from what was otherwise took place in India. Of course, we had in India, the first development tourism was Delhi, Agra, Jaipur, which is the Golden Triangle, followed by Goa, a foreign enclave. Then came Kerala, which was modern India, village India, ordinary India, and everyday India. But ordinary could be extraordinary, and everyday could be magic, is what was the discovery of Kochi, of Kerala's tourism. In some ways, in the early development stage of Kerala, much investment went into education, making the state the most literate in India, in healthcare, and trade unionism, besides being disrupting industry, it made wage structure in Kerala much higher. The agricultural laborer in Kerala possibly gets the highest in the subcontinent. In short, it made a more egalitarian society. And that is the foundation of tourism in Kerala, of the kind of tourism which Kerala developed. I would call that the traveler to Kerala, the alert independent traveler. Somebody who's besides seeking something for himself, is quite, for him, it's a voyage of discovery of how people lived, how their own travel impacted the local people. This movement, which happened in Kerala, was, and we've seen it grow over the next decades to become Kerala, the growth or the movement of Kerala towards God's own country. And the very happy, I would say, coalition or a collaboration between state industry and government. I think it's very unique. Whether we had left government or right government, there has been a uniform development here. Kochi is gateway to Kerala, and that gateway was gateway not today, but even in the past, from time the Muziris till modern times. The new airport of Kochi, which came in, the first corporate airport in India, and one of the earlier difficulties of a destination like Kerala was access. Now Kerala has probably the largest number of airports among any state in India, four airports, and a big stream of people, and which Kerala could attract a kind of traveler which was quite different and distinct. And here was the role of in Kerala, Kochi's position as heritage. The Kochi's, I would say, Chinamala, or the Chinese fishing nets, symbolizes that historic monument, which is renewable, which is used, and as a livelihood creator, made of wood, which is renewed year to year, but as ancient as to go back to BC. So this is the context of tourism's growth and development in Kochi. From here, in terms of our topic today, Kochi as the reason for Kerala at first is Kochi, and Kochi is Fort Cochin and Mattancherry. Fort Cochin Mattancherry reflects the history of 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 well from Admiral Zheng who had the Chinese fleet who came to Kochi, or much later the Muziris, which just could say it's not Kochi, but it's now part of Kochi, is the larger Kochi. And we have right through, we see how the Portuguese came, Dutch came, and then, of course, the English powers. And in modern Kerala, I think Kochi's role as industrial, as a modern state, and the way Kochi could amalgamate, and as we heard our speakers before, how we see a cosmopolitan culture of Kochi and coexisting with our past. And now let me just talk about from here where we go, how the role of tourism and how Kochi's heritage, art, culture, and architecture as a role to be a big, powerful prop to sustain travel and fashion the way in which tourism can develop in Kerala. Kochi is also known for its big exporter. It's Muziris was a destination of the spice route. Kochi is big in spices today and marine products, and being the most literate part of in India, Kerala's position. So as we see, as development started in the, I would say, let us say, in the mid 80s or early 90s, you could have tourism started to grow. At first, we had, I gave the numbers that from about 1 million, from about 25,000 moving to 1 million tourists. And most important factor, I think, which we have to see is in Kerala's social and political development, sometimes in the past, in the early days, which I could remember when I was here in the 70s and 80s, tourism seemed to be a kind of embarrassment to left and left of left governments. They would think that tourism is luxury, capitalist, and bourgeois. But from all that has changed now. Tourism has now become the engine of growth, provider of jobs, and contributing almost about 12 or 11% of the state's GDP. 1 in 3 new jobs come from the state. And going back to Stiglitz' statement, that Kerala's, in the earlier government, there was an event called the Emerging Kerala Summit, Investment Summit, where the Chief Minister's keynote address said the 2 change agents for Kerala were 1, the phenomenon of NRK, non-resident Keralites, and 2, the phenomenon of tourism. The NRK brought in remittances from overseas, which now in the region of about 1.5 lakhs per annum. And what did tourism do? It created enterprise, entrepreneurs all over, small houseboats, homestays, village resorts of a kind which India had not seen. And this was a remarkable feature which was able to attract that mold of tourists which appreciated the everyday and the magic of everyday, and to be among local ordinary people. While Kerala had, or Kochi had got those magnificent sites as Chinavalla, it has got those heritage pressings, but more than that, it was the participation, interaction of people which had a great culture, multicultural society, and food. I mean, one of the big attractions of Kochi, just to tell you, there's the famous stalls. You buy, we fry from the Chinawala, the fishing nets. Fish is caught, you buy it, and you take it to a restaurant which will cook it for you in the manner that you want, locally or internationally. Distinct features of the destination is that factor of it. So coming to the sense of place Kochi has, the kind of attitude which people have towards tourists is quite remarkable. And now we are now in the midst. We have faced a series of catastrophes in the last 5 years, starting from, we had the big flood, 1 in a 100-year event in 2018. Immediately after that, we had a virus called the Nipah. After that, we had another event. The monsoon of 2019 was catastrophic. And yet, the figures for tourism from October 2019 to January 2020 showed that in terms of arrivals and earnings, despite the catastrophes, the numbers were the highest in our history. The ability for tourism to spring back from at one time after the flood, the posters out there, the news, the appeal was help Kerala. And that was the time when there was a big dip in travel. From that, it became the resilience of travelers to come to Kerala. Now, of course, we are the biggest catastrophe of them all, the COVID. Well, in COVID, I've just been talking about BC, that's before COVID. Now, we are in the most difficult phase of it is during COVID. And we hope that sooner than later, we'll have a post-COVID phase. And where this will give a big opportunity to revise or redo whatever we've done, correct what needs to be done, make Kochi and Kerala an even greater place, which will be the greenest place, the cleanest place, and the healthiest place. And this is what the COVID has done. Which realigned the priorities. That, of course, we'll need our heritage, we'll have our song, we'll have our dance, our culture, all of that. But cleanest, greenest, and healthiest is now become a paramount requirement for travelers to come. In this context, I think preservation of our heritage, restoration of our ancient built, and growth of our intangibles, and I think we've also, which both will speak more on that. Events such as the Kochi Muziris Binale has happened, and that it could have. I mean, I would think that it could not have happened in this scale anywhere else, but in Kochi. Now we're looking forward. Big development in Kochi. We had last few years. We had the metro coming to Kochi. We had the water metro is anticipated to come make a big difference. Big things are happening in Kochi. At the same time, we are seeing the requirement to do up our place. Canals need to be restored. Our heritage monuments need to be protected. And we've got the museums need to be re-energized. All those will be factors which will come in, and tourism can play a big role in doing that. Today, many years ago, when in the 70s and 80s, we could see many buildings being thrown and demolished. But when tourism came, suddenly they saw it gave it gave value to give more that it could economic value to old and heritage structures, history. It gave economic value. Now we see that has been a strong factor which is both enabled regulations to come in at the same time telling people that keep and restore your old, keep it. Besides maintaining our history and keeping our history alive, it is also good for you for its good value and good for your livelihoods. So, as an industry, tourism now plays a significant part of in Kochi. In Fort Kochi, I recall at some meeting we had it was in a hall there, about 200 people there, and the question was about some development taking place, and then a poll was done: who among here depend or depend on or have for the livelihood in tourism? Almost 70% of people there were there who somehow linked to tourism. So today in our in ordinary lives, and the linkage of tourism from farm, from fishermen, and therefore the link of tourism to heritage preservation, to coconut farmers, to fishermen, and to auto rickshaw drivers, all of that, and five-star hotels and employment. 15 lakh people are employed in the tourism industry in Kerala. So this, I would think, is the context of what we need to show how tourism, with Kochi as a locality, with this Kochi as a commercial capital of Kerala, it sets a tone. It sends out a strong message, a beacon of old and new coexisting, different communities, different cultures working together. Now we see in the beginning it was small entrepreneurs of Kerala doing what they could do small, seeing the success. The biggest brands in the world, large capital is also moving in to build those mega hotels. So we are now at that time in which in our growth and development, when we see how tourism can play a significant role, and which will aided by so many other factors which are our resource and our assets. Going back to what Stiglitz would say, Kerala has proved through his tourism model that it can work for Kerala, and his advice was that concentrate on it. So the Kerala model of tourism would be responsible tourism, a great place to live in. Do nothing for the tourists, do everything for the local people, and for that will be that will attract tourists most. So for the local people, our museum, our heritage precincts, our of course, and water supply, roads, education, schools, all of that. And so this, I would think, it would be the context in which we can discuss the subject of heritage and locality, sense of place, in the larger India context. And when in Kerala has embarked, at first it would have been a very unlikely destination for tourism, but as it turned out, Kerala has become the most sought after, front performing state in India for tourism itself. So I could go on, and I think I'll stop myself here, and I hope I've provoked enough questions. There are much to be said about the post-COVID, the new normal that we now can anticipate post-COVID. It's a big time for big change, an opportunity for big change, and a big opportunity and willingness to change. I think that will be what what calamities can do is it enables and hastens change. We look forward to see how that can translate. At the moment, the tourism industry is in the midst of a crisis thanks to the COVID. First hit is tourism, worst hit is tourism, longest hit is tourism. It takes a long time. Now, no longer in Fort Kochi, you will have foreign tourists here, but that has created something else happening. Domestic, and more than domestic, we have localites becoming tourists in their own city. Kochi, people going to see Kochi. That's a big challenge. And they've all seen it. But now to see it with new eyes, deep down, dive deep to see, and to have new learnings from our remarkable history that Kochi represents. So I'm sure that will give us strengthen the way Kerala can grow, Kochi, and tourism can grow in Kerala, and Kochi be a strong part in that growth and development.
Thank you, Jose Dominic, for that wonderful talk, taking us through the chronology of Kerala's tourism success story, and also for revealing the multiple layers of Kochi's heritage tourism model, and ending with that note of the new post-COVID scenery of Kochi seeing Kochi. I think that is a very nice observation that people have started changing their travel habits due to the pandemic, and this is also changing and giving us new opportunities in tourism. So we'll move on to our next panelist, Mr. Bose Krishnamachari. He's an internationally acclaimed artist and curator. He is the founding president of Kochi's Binale Foundation. Some of his exhibited works include Bombay Maximum City, Lille 3000 France, and The Shape That Is Jandela and Concourse, Esplanade, Singapore. He was the artistic director and co-curator of India's first Binale, the Kochi Muziris Binale, that started in 2012, and director of the same in every later edition in 2014, 16, 18, and 2020. He has also curated exhibitions such as Affair, 1x1 Contemporary, and 1x1 Gallery, Dubai. Bose is known for his patronage towards young Indian artists and is also an educator. Bose is currently doing, or I should say, has embarked upon a really large project, which is bringing in all the Malayali artists to Kerala for conducting a really large exhibition and curated art program that is happening in Alapi, very close to Kochi, in fact, part of the Kochi cultural landscape. Over to Bose to throw light on how art has been an integral part of Kochi's heritage tourism success story. Next 15 minutes is yours, Bose. Kindly unmute.
Thank you so much, Bilal, for inviting me to be part of this. Wonderful panelists. Jose, sir, it was awesome to listen to you, always with some great point of view, like green, red kept Kerala green, and many other statements by. So I would like to share, since I will be going to talk about the Binale. I would like to share the screen. I hope you can see it, right?
Yes, we can see.
All right, thank you. Now, I would like to give you, I've been saying this for a long time, but I'd like to give you a little bit of background before talking about Kochi Biennial Foundation. In the first, I would say that, when I talk about culture, I think education is one of our educating or educational, making awareness about education or life itself is our motive. I believe in that education, art contained within education, like in the first educational ministry, was included culture in that. And also the Nehruvian time, Nehru's time, his vision to implement or infrastructure building academies founded through the educational ministry. Later period, from education, the culture is being removed, art is being removed. And now art and culture is, doesn't, like, I just wanted to say some kind of, when we look for some CSR funds, people always say, all the corporates say that, if you come up with something with education, we could think about it. There is something wrong in that kind of reading, I feel. I believe that art itself, or aesthetics itself, design itself, architecture itself, heritage itself is educational, cultural spaces. With that note, and also I wanted to say Kochi Biennale Foundation was actually begun, or we initiated the first in 2010. Then Culture and Education Minister visited Mumbai. That's the moment. In 2010, May 30th, in Borivali. That's a place I live and work. And he came to raise some funds for higher education. He wanted to raise 100 crore to make that kind of vision. I really greatly admire Sri Baby for how you can invest in education, and he found that art can help to raise funds. Asked the Sri Baby that how much time do we have to raise this 100 crore? So he said we have to raise it in 3-4 months time, and through auction, that's what he meant. Art auction, we could raise that kind of. I said it is impossible to do something like that. It's when it comes to art auction, it will take at least 2 to 3 years of research and work and things like that. Put together an important exhibition, and auction. Most of the artists doesn't like to give it because living artists' life maybe it's a kind of, in a way, some kind of risk. Like a successful artist can fall in few minutes of auctions time. Anyway, coming back to in that evening, I asked him, I told him that there are very successful Malayali artists living close to my place, like Jyoti Basu, T. Santosh, Riaz Komu. Would you like to meet them? And he was happily said, great, let's meet them. And we canceled this. I think, he was supposed to go back to Kerala House in Vashi. And we had a dinner together with artists. That evening, he asked, you are all very successful artists. What have you done for Kerala? What have you done for, making Kerala a success? Or culturally. So Riaz said, like Bose is already done with the show called Double and Days, which was 69 Malayali artist show first time. It was a traveling show in Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, and Kochi. That's the time people realized there are so many talents in Kerala. And Jitish Kalat, people said Jitish is a Malayali, or many names came up like that. Anyway, that was the beginning of that, Chundam Vallam. It means Chundan Vallam, double endless. And then that evening, he asked us a question. What's the best way we can, make Kerala more and culturally or artistically rich. I don't remember exact word he used for this, but it was kind of heavyweight question. Sounds very simple. After many thoughts, we felt that Binali would help. Binali is one of the finest thing to implement or organize it in Kerala. When we talk about Binali, the first people were not at all aware of what is a Binali, and and we have to educate him, or we have to make people aware what is a Benali, and it was originated in Venice. It means biennial means every 2 years. It's in English, biennial. In Biennale is in Italian, and now there are 316 biennials around the world. Some of them are existing only for a couple of weeks, and our Biennale first edition was 90 days, and people's demand be extended for 4 more days. I have only 15 minutes, so I just run through. Um, like I've been reading some notes in newspaper or social media. People say that it's a private organization. Kochi Benali Foundation is a charitable public trust. And we have 13 trustees. Out of that, 3 members are from the state government. One is from the finance and tourism and culture. The 3 representatives from the state government, and 10 trustees from different fields. Josh Dominic was one of them. He's one of our trustee, current trustee. Uh, there are incredible people from different fields, and some of them turned out to be, moved on to, Hormis Taragan sir. Now he's the advisor to the foundation. Kochi Binale Foundation's one of its main agenda or main vertical is Kochi Muslims Binale. Other than that, we have at least 10 verticals. And now we are working on the, another vertical, which is going to be, it's called Logame Taravada. The world is one family. And this is the place when we were thinking about the biennial, we didn't have much artistic spaces to exhibit artworks in Kerala, in Kochi. And we renovated with the help of architectural conservation architect, one of the finest UNESCO award winner, Vikas Dilavari, restored it. And we told him that, for exhibition, we need some white Cuban weather controlled, climate controlled space. And we created this amazing place. From 10,000 to 11,000 square feet space, now we have more than nearly 600,000 square feet of inside and outside of Kochi, existing places and intangible places as well. It is important how do you market or how do you present your projects. Like in our country, our state says God's own country. Kerala is known as God's own country or incredible India. Biennial city, when I say biennial city, and it has a great, Kerala, when I look at Kerala or Kochi, it's almost like a mirror. It received everything from outside. It received culture. It received religion, received everything. It's almost like a mirror. It's reflect. I don't call it reflection. I call it received it. A mirror is a receiver, almost like inhale it. And it's that reflection, you can see it in the intangible heritage and also the heritage of the architectural spaces. Architectural spaces in Matancheri and Kochi is a kind of amazing examples of the climate, the spices, all kinds of 44 or 46 different kind of community lives in 4.5 square kilometer area, and 16 different kind of languages people speak. This is all intangible, or I don't know what to call it. But I think that there is a kind of umbilical relationship in between Muziris and heritage, Muziris and Fort Kochi, which is very important to recognize and understand. The city itself, the soil itself is as um, um, Mr. Ravindran said, Kochi has grown from within. I believe that you had to you had to make the ground, you had to make the ground, and then you sow a seed, it can grow by itself. And Kochi is almost like one of the greatest sowing and greatest land for receiving everything. And in India's first Biennale opened on 12/12/12. This date was given by and suggested by Sri Koramis Taragan, sir. And when we were looking at international calendar of events, after 6th of December, there is nothing much happening. 6th of December means the first week of December happened one of the largest contemporary art fair. There is a difference in between art fair and the Biennale. Biennale is a kind of cutting edge practices. We don't sell any artwork. It's a non-profit kind of exhibition space. But art fairs are like other way around. There you make millions and millions of worth artwork is being sold and organized by galleries, international galleries, and it's all curated exhibition. Like one of the finest is, when I look at it, Basel, Switzerland it's a great place to go when you are in June. That's a place, and we have, when we set it up biennial like this, always the people of the land, as George Dominic said, that local understanding locally is important. We introduced to the local what is a biennial. We spoke to the auto rickshaw drivers. We given them, translated versions of different kinds of stuff about the biennial, and homestays and hotels, all these places. We went around and given what is a Biennale, and also we have given lectures about art, artworks by art students or friends of the biennial, and gone around and given lectures in art schools and colleges, and also given, bloggers came together to support the biennial. There were a lot of controversy also happened. The Biennale doesn't mean that, for example, P.K. Sadanandan's this work presently in the Terminal 3 of Kochi Airport. I'm very proud of this green airport. But still, of course, I don't talk about the architecture spaces there, but this work belongs to, now they collected it from the Biennial Foundation, and artist P.K. Sadanandan, I think he's very happy about that. We show, we have to create places when it comes to biennial or, exhibition spaces. Unfortunately, from the 10,000 square feet spaces to now we have many private galleries, there were David Hall, of course, it was historically important. Now, last week, a great space is opened, Dr. Werner was there, this Boston Bungalow as becoming one of the museum spaces. And so Kochi is, for me, it's one of the greatest creative cities in the world. Why Kochi didn't become, UNESCO awarded, I think, 15 creative cities in the world. I think, our state, our Kochi municipal corporation should apply for a creative city position to UNESCO. And we are there to help. Like I know that when it comes to Condé Nast writing about Kochi, or Nat Geo's writing about Kochi, it is not just the the Kochi's heritage. Of course, I do believe that architectural spaces are important. That heritage as well as the culture, art is given that position. Kochi Musiris Biennale given that position. New York Times, when they write about Kochi Musiris Biennale, place that as a kind of why it become out of 10 destinations internationally, one of the destinations is Kochi, because of one of the main reasons they pointed out is because of the Kochi Musiris Biennale's presence there and the heritage zones in Mattancherry and in Fort Kochi. But we need to preserve those places. I see, sadly, some of the nets are falling, some of the horrible designs are being implemented. Some of the, like I think the urban planning is terrible in that area. And the studies on urbanism is really important. I'm not going to talk about the art here. I'm just going through what kind of art we do. We work with communities, we work with children. We have ABC program, Art by Children, and the Students Biennale. For example, Students Biennale, we could not have physical exhibition, but 21 on the 21st, we are going to have curated exhibition of Students Biennial, and it will be online. And possibly we will do a parallel show like last edition. We will definitely try to make it happen, Students Biennale, physical as well in November 1st or November 11th. We are in mind of November 1st or 11/11 or something like that, looking at it. Anyway, that's up to the board and the state government. One of the major aspects when I think about the support coming from the state government of Kerala is really important. But when it comes to a biennial foundation internationally, biennial exhibition internationally, the Gonju biennial spent about 13 million euro, which means around 108 crore. And the same amount is spent by almost by Venice biennial. There are Liverpool Biennale. There's some of them spend 7 million euro. And last edition of the um, document that every 5 years it takes place, they spend about 37.5 million. And this is also given by the state or the city. Our case is only 30% or 33% is given by the state. And that's also, unfortunately, we had to beg for it. Unfortunately, whether it is, any government comes, like when it comes to, this is actually terrible when I talk about, begging for funds. And this is not the case with any cultural institutions like many sort of Biennale Foundation. They have many other Biennales. For example, they have theater biennial, they have film biennial, they have architecture biennale. When this year is, suppose if this year is architecture, next year they have art biennial. This is what we have suggested, and Chief Minister of Kerala also said we will do a design biennial, which is Kochi Biennial Foundation's vision. To every year there will be a festival. Festival can create creative city, and Kerala and the creative city can bring so much of tourism, so much. I know that differences. There are KPMG or Urban Design Collective from Chennai, Vidya Mohandas has done the studies. How much the improvement, how much the Biennale is brought to Kerala, how much wealth brought to Kerala is, you can go and study that kind of stuff. I think how much time I have, delay.
Yeah, I think
You have a
you
minute.
you can
All right.
conclude now.
Okay. All right. So we work with children. This year we have done, our head of ABC Art by Children program. We organized it with family. Online conversation with the family, dad, mom, kids. They are painting, and I have attended 2, 3 of them. Some of them come from Germany, Indian family, Kerala family, and some of them can't speak Malayalam, like Kongani, and different kinds of. So that family thing was amazing, awesome when it comes to physical distancing. And also, I just wanted to say, art can cure, and we have done that. As Jose Dominic said, after Nipah virus, after the flood, in every all the kind of disaster, we could raise almost 3 crore and given to the state government of Kerala. And Chief Minister's Relief Fund, we could raise it through artists' help, artists' work. We sold, auction, and as I told you, artists are never like an auction, but still they have given it for Kerala. There is some kind of sentiments towards this land and Kochi, and especially for the Kochi Biennale Foundation. I would like to thank. We organize lots of parallel programs, 365 days of thinking and working. We don't just talk, we work. Our foundation and our artists, because of them, our patron, we could survive, or still in debts, like maybe 3, 4 crores of debts, but still we are breathing. with fresh air. As Dominic said, I wish to have this green land more and more, 44 rivers running through, and still we have great place like a mirror. Be like a mirror, be happy. And we are going to have, I would like to invite you. It's not just in Alapi, the project of Logame Tarawad is happening. It's going to open on 1st of March. It runs for 90 days in Alapi as well as in Ernakulam Darbar Hall with the help of Locality Academy and many organizations, Indian Institute of Architects, Triple ID, all of them came together to really support this project. And a lot of theater friends and writer friends, all of them are, so with people can make beautiful places. And thank you so much for everything. Without patrons, I cannot survive, or I cannot do a biennial. I hope the CSR thing should be discussed in some point of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bose, for taking us through the colorful journey of how the Art Biennale has catapulted Kochi as an international center for art and heritage tourism. And also you have given a wider perspective of how it can become a world art city. It's an interesting idea, and I think we must all pursue that. And appreciations for the great work that you have been doing and continuously inspiring the younger generations. Thank you so much. Next, we have with us Ms. Aditi Nair, an artist and arts manager who currently is the director of Kerala Museum of the Madhavan Nair Foundation in Kochi. Passionate about making the museum a fun place for people, she dons many hats, that of a facilitator, fundraiser, publicist, program head, planner, and everything else in between. A really multifaceted personality. Rethinking the museum for the audiences of today, she is building a strong community of local museum lovers and stakeholders who engage in a relevant way with its programs and exhibits. Let me invite Aditi to speak about the importance of cultural space in heritage tourism. Over to you, Aditi.
Thank you, Billy. A warm hello to all of you present here with us today, and greetings to my fellow panelists too. Thank you, Mr. Bose, for that very inspiring. It's along the same lines as what we do, but yours has got scale and ours is small. Before I begin my part of the session, on behalf of the Madhavan Nair Foundation, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the OWH team and UNESCO for inviting us to participate in the debate series, and in particular, Global Coordinator Minja Yang and India Theme Curator Katie Ravindran. In the early 80s, a pioneering entrepreneur who's known as the father of the Indian seafood industry in Kerala started on an ambitious project to build a museum in the quiet town of Kochi. Starting his career as an assistant to Lord Bristow, who was the British engineer in charge of building Cochin Port at the time, Madhavan Nair believed that there is an inherent value in culture and its symbiotic relationship with education and economic growth. Much of what he envisioned those days has come true for Kochi today. The Museum of Kerala History Sound and Light Show takes a visitor through a wonderful tour of what gives the people of Kerala this whole cosmopolitan nature. 2000 years of Kerala history is spotlighted in the Kerala History Museum show. I'm just going to share my screen. Yeah. He then built the first ever private art collection that was then opened to the public as a resource. Just a second. Yeah, can you see me? Can you all see my slides?
Yes, we can
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. Oops, sorry. 1 second, I'm having a little trouble sharing. Abu. Abu. One sec. Yeah. But it's not lifting the slide off. Sorry, my slideshow disappeared. Yeah. Present. Yeah. Yeah, he then built the first ever private collection of Indian art that was intended as a resource for the public. You know, the museum itself is not located within this heritage zone of Fort Kochi that we've been discussing today, but rather at the other end of town on the access to Kochi from the airport. Using the case of the museum, we can examine the larger urban area that is Kochi. In the 80s, the vicinity of the museum was barely developed and barely inhabited, but today that space has become transformed into the city center itself because of the coming of a massive mall in 2013. And coincidental with the mall's arrival, our visitorship dropped drastically, and we began to re-examine what does it mean? What is the role of the museum in this growing city of Kochi? That's the commercial hub of Kerala. The dream of the museum was unique in that it was a private initiative, though the museum is run by a public charitable trust. It was a private initiative, a planned intervention by one man to add to the cultural landscape of the city. And the founder also set up other arts societies and subsequently, and similar to what Mr. Jose Dominic had said about small entrepreneurs in tourism, there were very many such privately run small and medium-sized spaces for the arts that cropped up. This sort of, the arts, the festivals, the theater, the music, the literature, sort of added to a stream of Kerala's living culture and heritage, so to speak. Some of these are not for profit, some are for profit, and some big ones are in partnership with the state and other receive other funding, such as the Biennale. All of these add to the sort of livability of the city and its economic development. And this attracts people into Cochin from areas outside of Cochin. So you see that over the past 35 years, we see a lot of entrepreneurship. This sort of environment encourages entrepreneurship. It encourages spin-off services like this one that we see here, art walks and heritage walks based on Fort Kochi and Matancheri and Tripunithara. And it creates economic development. It makes a city attractive to people to come and stay in Cochin. When we looked at the role of the museum in Kochi 3 years ago, the question that kept coming up was who comes to the museum? Basically, we get foreign tourists, we get Indian domestic tourists, and we get locals. But locals only more recently. Other than the schools, we would only have, only the schools would come in as local audiences. It's only in the last 3 years that we actually started collecting data informally, asking people what they liked and didn't like and what they would like to see more of. And they told us this gave us a view into the different audience groups and where we needed to strengthen our offering. For instance, we found that 70% of our audience is Malayalam speaking. That is, they are from Kerala. And yet at the same time, we are constantly required to sort of do this balancing act and strike a balance between whether we exist for a local audience or whether we are catering to tourists from India or even international tourists. On a shoestring budget, really, similar to many other arts organizations, small art spaces, we began creating multidisciplinary programs based on our art and history content. And we started incorporating better storytelling in our art exhibitions and in our history tour. Heritage spaces, or even in our case, a space that is simply there to initiate the discussion around our shared heritage. When looked at from the point of view of giving people a feeling of rootedness, may allow people the opportunity to ask questions about their own past. And sometimes even we see, you know, people able to access and understand what does it mean when we say the other. By focusing on diversity, inclusivity, and growth, whether it was making women artists feel and get more visible, feel more at home and get more visibility, or whether it was bringing in folks between the age of 7 and 75, or whether it was training teachers to use puppetry as a pedagogical tool in their STEM classes, we actually created something for everyone, something that everyone could connect with. We also partnered with non-governmental organizations that work in the areas of development, civic awareness, and things like that. And we realized that we can look at the space for heritage as a dynamic, evolving space. And that the space, the museum in the city can be the space that helps people make sense of their today, especially in the absence of, when we say both government and private educational infrastructure that Mr. Bose already spoke about in the educational system, whether it's private or governmental. We don't see the arts, we don't see history, we don't see, it being taught using the arts. And such spaces are very important, just purely because of the sheer richness of the creative ideas that they generate. In general, I think we see that it's one person or a team that initiates the vision for these spaces and caters to the needs of a particular community. Good examples of which in Kochi would be Changampura Park or Ala and Mulanduruthi, Lokadharmi, Taos in Fort Kochi, even local residents associations. And many of you would know about the library movement, the local library movement that Kerala's well known for, that very much helped in the 100% literacy rate that Kerala boasts of today in the 1990s. This, all of it contributed to being catalysts for art and culture. And often, many of these small initiatives and initiators face hurdles gathering adequate funding. Their small size itself is a problem. The availability of trained staff and the lack of capacity in this area are some of the deterrents that small organizations face in their success and sustainability. I'd like to actually, I'd like to conclude by saying that all of these small initiatives actually need to be mapped. Of course, big money goes to the big organizations, the big ones, the ones with high visibility, but the small initiatives need to be mapped and included in case studies. There are really no good studies of these small urban arts-based interventions. And admittedly, it's quite hard to develop metrics that determine the precise impact or evaluate their effect on things such as the quality of life of the local residents, or how they've helped local businesses grow, or even on local civic engagement. Um, but there's lots to be done. And we could really, I think, benefit from a common calendar of events where everyone can be on that common calendar. And today, with the way COVID has affected us, and uh, digitization of our communications, it would be very simple for us to actually have a common calendar. Um, but also, more importantly, we would need a platform that links, a policy platform that links all of these creative actors from all these multiple sectors with each other and with government in a way that would nurture and sustain and encourage innovation in these areas.
Thank you, Aditi, uh, on touching upon how cultural spaces can become an integral tool to enhance heritage tourism. As you explained, it is an effective way to engage citizens, especially younger generation, to the intangible aspects of culture. So in that topic, next we have with us a heritage conservation activist, Mr. KJ Sohan. KJ Sohan is the state convener of Indian National Trust for Art and Cultural Heritage, INTAC. He was the former mayor and also former chairman of Town Planning Standing Committee of the city of Kochi. He played a key role in notifying Fort Kochi as a heritage zone. During his tenure as mayor of Kochi city, KJ Sohan has been a well-respected heritage conservation activist who is known for making many invaluable contributions in the field of heritage conservation, affordable urban mobility, local area planning, local self-governance, urban environment, etc. Over to KJ Sohan for explaining the social dimensions of heritage conservation and heritage tourism in Kochi. Sri KJ Sohan.
Sohan sir, if possible, please switch on your video. Yes, sir, we can see you now. I think if you can unmute, then we'll be able to hear you as well, sir.
I hope okay. Yes, we can see you, sir. We can start the presentation.
I think, Billy, if I'm not mistaken, he's facing some technical difficulty.
Okay. So
Unmute. Hello.
Yes.
Um,
Yes, KJ Sohan, we can hear you.
yeah. Thank you so much, all the panelists as well as Minja and Katie. Minja, it's been a long time. All the perceptions that each of the panelists presented on for a person like me, who was born, brought up, and lived all my life seeing the heyday of Cochin, and the decline, and now the rebirth of Cochin in another context. So, everything that was mentioned here, deeply anchored in the history of Cochin. It is a tribute to that history and the enabling environment that created the history of the rulers as well as the people who enabled such a history to evolve. It is the everlasting tribute that is spoken. This is historically this is the first European settlement east of the Suez, and as such, this is the place where the whole world came in search of spices and create a foothold in the spice trade as the sole lucrative that part of the time. So three European powers came, and one after the other, 1.5 centuries each, they dominated. They brought new practices, techniques, trading practices, commerce, everything to Cochin, and that had effect throughout our state. So when we look at Fort Cochin, we have to just go back to Muziris, because that is the original footprint of Cochin from where we came this side. A great tribute also the rulers who were so tolerant, so accommodative of everybody and all the ideas that came in from all over the world. So today, if you
Has he lost the connection?
Yeah, I think he has just dropped for the moment.
can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Please continue.
So each settlement is unique in its build form, in its religious rituals, in its food habits, dress habits, languages, so many things. So all these in a matter of 4 square miles. So that is one thing that makes Cochin very unique. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. All these factors that were mentioned here were brought out thanks to Intact for sending a young team of experts from Delhi study Fort Cochin and Matangi. That's the story 35 years ago when KG came the band of militant architects and experts, and they made a study of Fort Cochin and Matangi. Actually, as a member in the city council, I joined this study. I learned such a lot of my own town. And later, many of us in the city and in hello. So
Yes.
this was there was a big learning process in that. The report that brought out titled Fort Cochin Mattancherry Heritage Zone Report. That was not only on paper. It was very particular that it be exposed, it be presented, it be discussed throughout. So with 60 slides, I remember, with 60 slides, KT made a presentation in the city council. So all the political parties, all the politically elected members in the council, they listened to him speaking about a declining, what do you call a decaying city that was collapsing all. Because after independence, after the British left, he was
I think Mr. Sohan's internet connection is unstable.
so sorry for the inconvenience. Anyway, Fort Cochin was in decline at that point of time. But when JT made the presentation in the city council, and later he made a presentation at the Development Authority, Greater Cochin Development Authority. And again, for the people of Fort Cochin, he made a presentation in the community hall in Fort Cochin. So that was a game changer. And we took it to the people, telling them that these are very important buildings, structures, which harbors the heritage and history of this place, of which we have to be proud of and maintain it like that. So there was a lot of questions. Because he was from Kerala, he could speak in the local language. And that was the great change that we could see in the result that came out. Later, the city council decided to declare Fort Cochin as a heritage zone. And we passed a resolution, which was later adopted by the government. And the government order very clearly says that the area demarcated in the intact report was declared as the heritage zone. Then later on, that was in 90 when we declared that. So, and the government formed a heritage commission to preserve or conserve this place. Every development or any building that has to be done or that has to get the consent of the heritage commission. And Loretta also was on this commission. So many other important heritage enthusiasts were on the experts were on this commission at different points of time. So that was the game changer for us. Now, later on, the government came in a big way and supported the conservation of Fort Cochin. So the tourism department funds were allotted, and again, Intact was involved in making a project report for conserving and developing Fort Cochin as a destination. At that point of time, tourism was just not having a big impact on Fort Cochin. But after this project was implemented, I think Amit, Balakrishnan, all those officers were there. They were the ones who supported it. So after that, we got a few of international. Got a few awards which brought focus on the town, and then slowly tourism started coming in. And the tourists are also very particular about the streetscapes, the old building.
I think the connection is unstable. Sohan sir, can you hear us? We'll wait for a minute. Sorry about this technical glitch. I think the connection of our panelist has become unstable. Okay. I think we can now move on to the panel discussion because we are also running out of time. I would request the host to bring in the panelists onto the screen. Thank you. I am sorry for the technical glitch that has happened. I think Mr. KJ Sohan is not able to clearly speak because of the unstable connection. And Mincha is still with us, but she's not able to switch on the video. So we have our panelists. All the panelists are with us right now. Kochi Muziris Twin City region has been an international travel history of more than 2,500 years. This place has been undergoing several geomorphological changes over the centuries. Kochi city we see today is an outcome of all that history. My first question is to Jose Dominic. Kochi has been the gateway to tourism in Kerala and in the country. So one of our participants have asked how Kerala's tourism industry has performed post 1996 in terms of products, research, and development. So let me also combine that with a couple of other questions that people have been asking. Is from your talk, somebody has actually asked this, that if one draws comparison with international tourism destinations, how could Kochi live up to your dream of cleanest, greenest, and the healthiest in the coming decades? Jose, could you take up that question, please?
How much time? Anyway, it's a long, big question. I can have a short answer, long answer. But I would think that by 1996, Kerala's tourism model was beginning to emerge. Unique model. And I think I'll repeat what I said when I spoke. I think that's a very crucial manner in which it grew. Small entrepreneurs doing what they could, which is small, in a manner which they knew which is local. Self-reliant, using local capital, so it is small, indigenous. And that characterized Kerala's tourism style and the way it developed. What it did was that it made Kerala, the product, very, very unique. And that was a big advantage. That enabled the state as a destination to leapfrog from a Bimaru status to a front performing status. And from 1996, as the questioner said, was a time in which we began to grow. In the year 2002 was the year in which we had the first Kerala travel mart. Not 2000, yeah, in year 2000, the first Kerala travel mart, where the idea was this, that it's very, very difficult for these small entrepreneurs to go to London or to go to Delhi or to go to Berlin to take part in those international and national marts. Why not have it here itself? And what has happened there also is quite remarkable in the sense that Kerala Travel Mart has emerged to be India's largest travel marketing event now. Every once in 2 years it happens. There's that Mart society has grown to become representative of big, small, new, old, everything, everybody in tourism. So the inclusive and participative nature and the collaborative nature of tourism, that is characterized how tourism grew and developed in Kerala. Of course, in the beginning, tourism was considered to be what when I spoke about it, luxury for the rich man. So, well, tourism is not for the tourist. Tourism actually provides livelihoods, provides development, provides motivation for heritage preservation, and so much more. So that was a discovery that Kerala made from actively pursuing tourism. And today, I don't think any day you will find, in fact, in the speeches in legislature, you will find. Let me say it in another way. Kerala, we have our coalition governments. In the old days, the portfolio of tourism was used to be given to the party, to the weaker party. The tourism functionaries or officers were those who were out of favor. It changed that in our coalition system, the most powerful party took and kept that portfolio tourism, and only bureaucrats in favor would get that post. So the big transition that took place from of Kerala tourism position is quite remarkable. Today, of course, it has become probably equal to farm, not next to farm, equal to farm, the biggest job creator, significant contributor to livelihoods, economy. And going back to what I spoke earlier, the two big change makers, tourism and non-resident Keralite. While one, at the current moment, non-NRK has become, Gulf boom has become Gulf returning. So tourism now has to step in to provide rehabilitation, employment, and livelihood creation for the big responsibility, not only for people returning from the Gulf because of declining the petroleum economy, but also boys and girls coming out of schools and colleges in Kerala will increasingly look at finding either jobs or creating enterprises based from tourism. So it is increasingly playing a role of meeting social people aspirations, at the same time economic strength. So that's why I would say that post the current calamity, we will hope that tourism potential to live up to and to meet the aspirations which will now come out. Something like after the big flood, after Noah flood, till the flood and post the flood, or till the COVID and post the COVID. These will be, I think history will say this will be a situation. And today, tourism's role and tourism dependence on our heritage is significant. I myself, I didn't talk about it when I spoke about. I have now also engaged in restoring as a private venture. I've stepped down from my post in the organization I was working with, and now I am a private entrepreneur in a town in Jew town, restoring two little homes. One, the A.B. Salem home, a Jew who's called a Gandhian Jew, and the other next door, another Jewish home, and luckily, and I think, of course, a thriving, throbbing, people participating, small town, small homes, converting and becoming a big destination by all coming together. This characterizes Kerala's post-96 growth and development. And I think Kerala's story in tourism is worth examining. And it's a way in which we hope, I think, lesson for other sectors, such as manufacturing and all to grow, that small and indigenous has a capacity to make the big difference. Today, in many destinations across the world, you'll find large, big brands. Let me just add, just add one more thing. As part of the Eco-Tourism Society of India, as a co-founder, we run workshops across in many cities in India. Some few months before COVID, we ran in Goa. Participating was very activist young Goans who were talking about how Goa developed. And they said Goa laid out the red carpet for foreign direct investment to come. And they came and built those large 200, 300 room hotels, flying the best brands, flags the best brands in the world. Then looking at some of us sitting on the sidelines, they said, look at these guys. They scared away through the red flag, scared away FDI. And what did they do? They did it themselves, though small and though local. Yet they became world class. And in some ways, the Goan example said, we were thankful that we got jobs as waiters and cooks and gardeners in the hotel. But they developed the small and local. They are the owners and the managers, and they are the ones responsible for development of that sector. And then of course statistics of Goa has a population of 14 lakhs, and 64 lakhs is the footfall per annum in Goa. And he cryptically said, look, we Goans, the FDI takes away the cream, and we are left to clean up the garbage of the 64 lakh footfalls. It's a manner of speaking, though, but it showed how local enterprises, local entrepreneurs, using their own skills, their own capital, can have a unique development result.
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective. I think you have unfolded, or rather, uncovered the mystery to Kerala's success of being small and local, and how it can, through responsible initiatives, how it can become internationally accepted destination. And Rachel has asked a question to Bose Krishnamachari sir. How was art associated to Fort Kochi before the establishment of Kochi Binale? Or let me put it in another way. There was a time when Kochi, especially Fort Kochi and Mattancherry, was going through a really blighted phase, especially in the social and economic perspective. When youngsters of the place were leaving the place and they were wanting to go out of Fort Kochi and Mattancherry into the mainland, or to go to other cities and live abroad and things like that. But the Biennale has changed all that. It has brought in new light, new energy, a lot of aspirations among younger generations. Could you briefly explain how did it turn from that a place of something that was really dark and dull at one point, when there was a lot of negative energy, especially among the youngsters in Fort Kochi, who were getting sort of suffocated in that place, and suddenly it changed into the youngsters now becoming the flag bearers of not only tourism and art and culture, but also the place itself. The name itself is being carried by themselves. Can you briefly explain that turn of event for Fort Kochi?
I think we have to go back to some memory lines when we think about a site, a location, especially Kochi. Kochi, when I was chatting with an old friend of mine, he passed away a couple of years ago. I got to know that like art and music was there. Music was one of the main thing when we talk about Kochi or Mattancherry. 1968, the first band was invented there. The rock band, and Mehboob orchestra, and also when I look back, before the Biennale, there were places, small places, but Dravidia was one of the first places I remember. Of course, there are other institutions and things like that, but Dravidia there's a guy called I've forgotten his name, Shihab. He used to organize get together with the poets, filmmakers. Even when we look at the film of John Abraham, the site was actually Aspinwall. The shot was taken in Aspinwall. Aspinwall was a place, there was kind of different kinds of, people used to get together. And I found art through few small gallery spaces like Kashi Art Gallery. It's still playing an important role, Kashi Residency. And the same way, David Hall. David Hall belongs to the Dutch heritage thing, but it is taken over by CGH Earth and converted into a kind of art and life kind of place, food, everything, turning out to be a culturally, conscious public. How do we make culturally conscious public? So that reason we need to have spaces. For contemporary art, we didn't have much places. There is a gallery, now new spaces have come up, like what OED was a few years ago. And then there is Gallery 27. There are a few other private galleries as well. And so that I can go on talking about the smaller spaces, but now presently, you could see there is a kind of each and everyone is some way sensitized to themselves about aesthetics. Still, our bureaucrats or our politicians, sometimes they don't get what is aesthetics. It's aesthetic cannot be taught, but it could be learned, it could be imbibed. So for that reason, we need to develop infrastructure for art and culture. We don't have, in that sense, we don't have places. Kochi Biennale Foundation doesn't have large spaces. It's all in kind given by DLF or in kind given by young couple like Isaac Alexander and Tinky, or Edgar Pindu of Old Harbour. These people are given us, and Mr. Josh Dominic's organization has also given us spaces to create art, or it's all most of the time slowly, people realizing I can ask an 18-year-old boy presently, he was maybe 10 when the Binale was started. The things really that 8 years or 10 years been really, really drastically changed. I think the consciousness, the behavior of many of the people, I think art made them in almost like a kind of curing, almost like a kind of making them and a kind of happy going kind of stuff. It's almost like an artist, like an acupuncture, I would say. Like one of my architecture friend, Nuru Karim, said that when we study Kochi, he said certain points you have to, have a acupuncture kind of stuff to develop these areas. I think art is given that kind of stuff. Kochi Binale Foundation could play that small role. I think I'm proud that Kochi is everywhere, all over the world. People are really talking about the cultural aspects of it. The Biennale brought that kind of. We can be really proud, even if I anyway, I don't want to take much more time. And answer, I can go on talking about when the transformation and things like that when it comes to.
Bilay, if I can just add to that,
Yeah.
For Anne Rachel's benefit,
Yeah.
Fort Cochin was a place, like someone mentioned before, that appeared neglected, but with what is known as creative placemaking, as what Mr. Bose has also been saying, we need to create these places. And that means you need to infuse those places with art, with music, with life, basically, reanimate those spaces so that they start becoming used and loved again. I think that's what creative placemaking is, to sum it up for this question for Anne Rachel. Yeah.
Yeah, there were a lot of studios as well. I remember Azad used to have larger studio spaces. Abul Kalam Azad. There are a lot of interesting spaces. There was kind of amazing energy in 90s and 2000 beginning, and but Biennale maybe there could be a kind of study that the pre-biennial and post-biennial. Now people talk about pre pandemic and COVID and post COVID kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
I think it
like to
will reveal much more than what you have explained in a very humble way. You have put it very humbly about the role of Binale. I would say that it has been a major leading light, because you could see the difference in the children, especially like you said. The 18-year-old boy is probably the most ideal. And I have seen, because I have worked in these areas as UNESCO's consultant, and I could see the change during this time. And now when you see a youngster in Fort Kochi or Matanjeri, their eyes are lit up. They are beaming with pride about being a Kochiite, and about all the buildings, all the heritage, and all the art that has been coming, and people talking about these places. They are really proud about it, and I think Binale has played a really big role, and it is a really welcome idea to sort of understand what is the role of this cultural placemaking has done to the people of Kochi. And this is something that that can become a kind of a case study for many cities across the world, not for drawing parallels with Binale or art exhibition alone, but generally about cultural placemaking, as Aditi was pointing out. Yeah, we are sort of running out of time. We are already past our time, 8:30.
We have some
It's a
interesting
bit
questions.
sad that one of our panelists was out of air, because he had some technical glitch. I think the bandwidth was probably affected by
I
some
would like to
aspect. Mr. Sohan, he's not here yet, so
There are some more questions from Minja and the.
yeah, there are some more questions. Maybe there is one that is to you particularly, Aditi. That is the great background on local initiatives for tourism based on normality for Kochi historic center not to become just an oasis of beauty, heritage and arts, how can the historic center link to the greater Kochi? You know, how this energy can be taken to the larger Kochi, which is quite a mess with unplanned urbanism. Bose pointed out that out in his talk about the problems of urbanization and how urbanism has to be studied better. As Aditi said, why did the establishment of the mall in 2013 decrease the entries to the museum? So this is a very valid question, and Aditi, probably you can just throw some light.
I threw that in my talk because it is the most interesting phenomenon that really, in terms of data that we have experienced. I think the beginning part of the question about how can the historic center be linked could possibly be taken by you, Bilay, because you're the expert on uh, on urban architecture and planning here. Um, when we actually look at our visitors and our audiences and how they've changed, in the beginning there was the museum set up for children. The goal and the purpose was education and giving children an idea of their past, giving children in Kerala an idea of their past. And by and by, the museum began to link up with tourism, and it's offering to people coming in from outside of India and from outside of Kerala. And then we see this shift where even the local schools who come on their school trip and they're outbound, and their local families, say a bus or a group of women, a self-help group or a church group coming to visit the museum, opts to go to Lulu Mall rather than to the museum. And of course, it has a lot. It's a very complex, phenomenon, because it has to do with ticket pricing. It has to do with the value for money. It has to do with entertainment versus education. It has to do with so many factors. It has to do with a family outing and what is the overall experience you're providing. So it really had to do with what are we doing here and who are we here for. The minute we examined that, we started looking at how we can bring in these local audiences, because like Mr. Bose said about patrons, for us, without our local audiences, without our local community involvement, and without them really making it known what they want to see and what they want to participate in, there's nothing that we can really do, and far from actually solving this education entertainment sort of combination with populist solutions, where we say, okay, put a Gana Mela, which is like a karaoke, or though I have nothing against karaoke, we really felt that we should give people multi-layered uh, experiences, rather than just make it so simplistic that there isn't that much to discuss or talk about, and that can also be entertaining. So we did approach it that way, and it seems that even though they're not coming back for the day spent as they used to do before, because it was considered this lush green space in Cochin, which it still is, but there is the air conditioned mall right next door. So though they don't come back for the day spent, they do come in to really immerse themselves in arts learning programs, and you can really see the effect of the benefit that people derive from being involved in a program at the museum, the friends they make, the conversations that get started. Yeah, often people come back in pairs who've met from two separate places. They've met at some workshop and they join for another workshop later in the year, because they've become friends. So that connection that happens can only happen in something that's intimate and small like this. That's one of the key.
It's a very interesting point of view to actually sort of these becoming also the networking place.
Yeah.
In fact, that is the key word I would like to use when the Minja's first part of the question of how we can take it to the larger Kochi or the greater Kochi. Bose also touched upon it. The importance of networking is to be understood. If these cultural places can actually act in a manner, or could be networked in a manner, and government also can play a big role in activating some of these spaces, because many of these are owned by governments or trusts under the government, and also some other private initiatives. All these can become a network where activating cultural programs and cultural projects will make sure that the city and the larger city also benefits. Kochi and the larger Kochi or the greater Kochi also benefits because of such activities. I think somebody has also asked about what's happening to the backwaters. Yeah, Bose, you want to say something?
Yeah, there's a question to, from India. I see, even if the local authorities are on the Binale Foundation's trust, do you still have difficulties in getting government subsidies, grants? Do private sectors who contribute to the Binale get tax deduction? It's an important question, and actually, many times we don't have cultural policy, unfortunately. But this envisioned by few people like the Dr. Thomas Isaac. It's really I would like to say that his vision worked when in 2011 we had met. He's seen there is a kind of huge potential in this project, and that's how we decided to invest in. State government decided to invest. Of course, the idea was with Mr. Baby, but the finance is most important. And internationally, every fund is, as I mentioned, it is always given by the state or the city. To your question, we don't have FCR, a foreign remittance kind of thing, but we can receive donations. The Kochi Binale Foundation can receive donations, which has ATG certificate, can be given the tax deduction is applied to it. Yeah. So I thought, like when it comes to fund, I'm greedy about it because we are totally broke guys, we are creating this Binale with the kind of really begging bowl, which is not a good thing. Culture should be, understood by both, it's really a great investment. 80% of the tourists in Paris or in UK are cultural tourists. It's not backpackers. That cultural tourism given the potential, the wealth to the country, not only the city. The museums bring, when you go to Barcelona, why it is called creative city? Why it is called, UNESCO call it creative city? And that is because of its heritage, architecture, and art. Only these two things, art and architecture.
Yes.
What is visible is architecture. That turned out to be, even the trees can be architecturally interesting. So, but these things need to be really understood, how tourism can be developed, how culture play an important role to boost the energy of the city or a country or a state. We have incredible wealth in India. But when it comes to policy making, unfortunately, even 0.12% or something like that given for art. 0. But in UK's case, out of every 5 pounds, £1 is really given for cultural, redevelopment or museum building or something or the other. So these things needed to be really reported, studied, and well, Yeah, thank you.
One last question to Jose Dominic. That is again from Mincha. This is about the big international hotels. Whether do you think it has a threat, and also should there be a policy for making sure that it doesn't disturb the local entrepreneurship and the local initiatives? So, what is your take on that?
Though there recently many large, big brands, big size has come in, they still are. I mean, I don't think they're a threat to the large multitude of small entrepreneur hotels. At the same time, as a policy, I don't think in open Kerala, in a liberal Kerala, pluralistic Kerala, we need to have no restriction whatsoever. Democratic rights should prevail. And they are not a threat at all. In fact, they strengthen the individualistic hotels. Rather than have a global experience, you can have a local experience. Is the way of the future. So large conventions, conferences can be held in those big hotels. In a way, those conferences which bring in people will then seek
Filter
out
in.
and
Yeah.
go out and visit local in the countryside little hotels. It has a big contribution to play. However, my only fear of the threat is that somewhat like what Aditi was saying, the big mall versus the small cultural space. What is attracting people to go to the big mall? In fact, it's advertised that no need to go to Dubai. Come to the mall.
Yeah, with that, I think with that humorous note, I think we will come to the end of the session. We have, I think, let me conclude this discussion that we have had a very interesting evening, really enlightening speakers who have delivered excellent lectures on Kochi's heritage tourism and how the local initiatives have really been the flag bearers of this success story. Cochin Muziris Twin City has been the cultural melting pot of the world, and being part of the Tamilagam region, or it has also been part of the philosophies of the high philosophies of the Sangam era. Buddhism and Jainism were prevalent. Christianity has come as early as 1st century, Islam in the 4th century because of the international cultural exchange. There are archaeological evidences of existence of Roman temples in the region. Multiple things. There are over a dozen Jewish synagogues, and there was colonial rule by Portuguese, Dutch, and the British. Over a dozen ethnic groups have come and settled first in Muziris and later in Kochi for over centuries. They have been living together in harmony. With them came multiplicity of language, food, livelihood, festivals, art, architecture, craft, music, folklore, many more aspects of culture. And this rich heritage is the essence of Kochi, and that is unparalleled, and that is this cultural pluralism is what makes Kochi very special. And with that note, let me invite Professor K.T. Ravindran to deliver the concluding remarks.
Thank you, Billy. Thank you for a fabulous moderation job that you did of this highly intuitive and highly experienced people who have actually drunk from the fountain of Kochi to speak about its life and its relationship with heritage tourism. That was really fantastic. And of course, you as the moderator has done an excellent job. Thank you, Billy, for being the moderator. Next, I must thank Aditi and the Madhavan Nair Foundation, which actually anchored this whole program as an institution. And having carried that through without any glitch. So thank you, MNF, and specifically Aditi, who has been taking the lead from MNF on this issue. Now, of course, Jose Dominic has been fabulous. I mean, he's fantastic. He's a man with such great perception and such intense experience in the field. And apart from all this, he is also a man who has actually understood the pulse of tourism in Kerala. It's a very specific thing, tourism in Kerala, because one has to see the texture of Kerala as a state. The presence of nature and the widespread occupation, habitation of the land, and then from there, local practices which evolved out of that intense relationship with nature. So Kerala does not have Taj Mahals and Ajanta Elloras and so on in its landscape, but it has a very high level of intensity, which is a very unique thing, which generates culture. And I think the idea of keeping things small was first brought in by Jose Dominic. I remember him telling me 30 years ago that Kerala should not have any hotels more than 50 rooms. So I don't know whether he still holds that view. I'm sure he does, because it is really a place where small is beautiful. Small is beautiful in Kerala because the small is very intense. And I think Cochin, in a sense, is a microcosm of that intense relationship between the environment and the people. And it's that attracts the people. And I think the best thing that's happened, one of the best things that has happened, like Bilay has said, to Kochi, is the coming of the Biennale. When you bring a very high vision, mix it with heritage, fantastic urbanism, fine textured urbanism, and then you mix history and you bring in new art into that space, that's a very heady combination. That's a combination which nobody can say no to. It's been such a wonderful thing that was injected into the fabric of Cochin, the Biennale, and Bose was the originator of that thing. He's the founder of the whole Biennale Foundation, as well as he's been the curator, and he has had enormous tenacity and capacity to continue this through all these years. I was lucky to visit every one of these Biennales, and I can tell you that every event had its own character. And in every event, the city begins to participate more and more, the city of Cochin. Not because it's big, but because it has the capacity, or it was vulnerable enough to respond to the stimulus that was coming from outside. It is a terrific thing. And of course, Sohan, KJ Sohan, who also spoke for us today, unfortunately, because of the audio problem, we couldn't hear him too much. But KJ Sohan has been the moving spirit. He ignited the tourism move in Kochi back in the 80s when he was the mayor of Kochi. And he's the one who fought on the street for preserving the heritage. And those days, people did not value heritage. They were ready to break things down. And today, they are even faking heritage today to be able to become valuable to the fabric. So we have done a complete U-turn, and KJ Sohan has had a very important role to play in that. And it's unfortunate that he was not able to bring that out fully today, but I thank every one of you. And I also thank Minja for initiating this whole discussion. I think it's been a very, very rich and fruitful discussion. Thank you all, and I thank all the audience, a lot of them who have actually joined both in this platform as well as on the Facebook. I thank all of you for being there, and thank you once again. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Katie, for summarizing the webinar series and touching upon the meaningful outcomes, and also saying, from your heart, how Kochi has become such a special place because of the rich cultural and heritage and the mix of the all aspects of culture and art and architecture and many things. Let me take this opportunity to officially thank all the panelists and all the participants for participating in this Kochi edition of Heritage, Tourism and Locality webinar series on behalf of Our World Heritage, UNESCO and other international organizing partners, as well as our local organizing partner, Madhavan Nair Foundation. Thank you all and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bose. Thank you, Jose.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Atiti.
Thank you.
And if Sohan is listening, thank you, Mr. Sohan, for being with us.